listen, hear me out here. It's like in Finding Nemo when she has all her babies in that little anemone and then the barracuda comes and it kills all her babies.
Where are you going with this?
I'm asking, like, when she killed all the babies in the anemone, was that because they were in the light? Is there any science to that?
There's just survival strategies.
Survival strategies.
So she's seen that movie once.
Only one time.
I saw it for professional reasons.
All right, and welcome back to Our Herd, the official podcast of the Toledo Zoo. I'm Corey.
I'm Caitlin.
And we got Maddie over here in our producer seat. If you haven't listened to us before, this podcast is all about, yes, the Toledo Zoo, but it's also about the people that work at the Toledo Zoo. It's just been wonderful to already be building this community.
It's really exciting that an idea that we came up with is now actually coming to life.
It's living and breathing, man.
It's living and breathing.
We're only 3 episodes in, but we've got quite a bit of a little community going on, and we've already got a lot of our listeners responding to us and commenting on our content. We just want to make sure that we're acknowledging that. We love that you guys are commenting and giving us feedback.
You.
So, Caitlin, I think we have a few of those pulled here
We
right now.
do. We pulled these from social media. Pat says, very fun and informative. Good to know the keepers love these animals so much. And that's so true.
Yeah.
Every single one of our keepers are here because they love the animals that they take care of and they love their job so much, which I think is just so inspiring. Sandy said, loved the podcast. Wow, so informative. But if I met you, not sure if I'd shake your hand.
That's definitely in reference to the last episode that we just did with the elephant keepers. I wouldn't blame them because they're
a little stinky.
It's a little stinky, a little messy too.
Yeah, go watch that episode. Last comment. What a great episode. I'm so glad Dave was able to come on. His history with Renee is legendary. That's also referencing our last episode with our retired elephant keeper, Dave, and he's known Renee, our elephant, for years and years and years and years.
Their entire lives. Yeah.
Well, this is a very exciting year. We are celebrating 125 years of the Toledo Zoo and Aquarium, and the 10-year anniversary of the Aquarium Renovation is in March.
It's just so significant for viewers that don't know. The Toledo Zoo has 5 historic WPA era buildings on site, which is just the highest concentration of those project buildings in the nation. And the WPA era was the Works Progress Administration that employed locals throughout the nation to do all these like different amazing projects to keep the workforce going through the Great Depression. And the fact that we have 5 of those structures here at the Toledo Zoo is absolutely incredible. Toledoans have grandparents, great-grandparents that worked on these buildings, who had constructed them. And I think it's so cool that we get to live in today's generation where we're seeing, again, Toledoans in our local companies being able to renovate these buildings to ensure that future generations can enjoy these for years to come.
And to celebrate all fishy things, we have our aquarist. We have Jeff and Drake. So go ahead and introduce yourselves.
So I'm Drake. I'm one of the aquarium keepers here. I have a bachelor's in biology with a specialization in marine and aquatic biology from Bowling Green State University. I started as an intern out in North Carolina almost 10 years ago, and followed that with a temporary keeper job here at the Toledo Zoo. Left and spent a couple years in Florida at 2 different facilities and have come full circle all the way back here.
Bowling Green State University. Falk, yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry. We got to go Falcons.
That is really cool how it was like a full circle moment for you though, to come back and work here at the Toledo Zoo. Did you grow up in the area?
I did not. Okay. I grew up kind of a little bit of everywhere.
Okay, gotcha. Because I was curious if you had ever visited Toledo Zoo before you had actually interviewed and got a job.
I did once when I was at Bowling Green.
So you were at least loosely familiar with it before you came in.
Loosely familiar. Very nice.
Vaguely familiar with it. All right.
Jeff, what about you?
My name's Jeff. I'm a keeper here in Aquarium. My background is I have a bachelor's and master's degree in biology from Eastern Michigan. Been employed here 28 years, 4 months.
I deserve some little claps.
Little claps.
Golf claps.
That's it.
That's it. What got you interested in all things aquarium, fish life, marine life?
In graduate school, I was the head teaching assistant for our zoology class lab. So it was my responsibility to set tests up, do the dissections for exams, et cetera, et cetera. So me and my friends decided to try to spruce the lab up a little bit. So we set up some small fish tanks, some salamander cages. And then one of my options were clean a tank or work on my thesis. It was, I think I'm going to go clean a tank.
That sounds more fun.
I found it very zen in a way, draining the water, filling it back up. And I found it quite relaxing. Mm-hmm. And then my last semester of graduate school, my thesis advisor handed me a job posting for the aquarium, something I hadn't considered. And I didn't really, oh, hey, zoo jobs. Mm-hmm. So I got an interview, wasn't qualified for it, but I got the interview.
What weren't you qualified for when it came to?
I had no saltwater experience. There's just certain things that would be considered basics that I just hadn't been exposed to. Okay. I did not have fish tanks as a kid. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I figured out, hey, this stuff is interesting. But it was a learning experience. It's like, okay, this is really cool. This is going to be my goal, short term. Give myself a 3-year time window. And what am I lacking? Okay, I was lacking scuba experience. I was lacking saltwater exposure. So I got a job at a small pet store so I could get exposure to handling fish tanks. I got scuba certification up in Ann Arbor. I then proceeded to get 2 more job interviews here in the next 2 years after that time frame. And then on my 3rd try, I got hired.
Is scuba certification like a requirement for aquarium keepers? Okay.
At our facility it is. Why?
Why?
Yeah, I mean...
Because once the tank volume gets above a certain size, standing outside of it with a pole does not become feasible to clean the windows or the walls. And then certain animals, you need to go in and get them, and you can't do that with a pole with a net on the end of it. So I do not know what the exact dimensions you could classify that as, but there's just a limit you have to get in.
Okay. So it's not like...
How often are you guys actually getting in the tanks though?
So we have 3 dives a week usually, or we try to get in tanks 3 times a week. It depends on the size of the tank, on how frequently we're getting in there, as well as how strong the lights are and anything that's causing algae to grow. We use mostly volunteer divers here at the Toledo Zoo. So ourselves are not getting in the water all too often. And it depends a little bit on whose responsibility the tank is. We have the whole building split up between everybody. So Tink the sea turtle and his tank is one of my primary responsibilities. So whenever somebody has to get in there and we don't have volunteer divers, that usually falls onto me.
Okay. Swimming with Tink, what is that like?
For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Tink is our green sea turtle that is a rescue and lives here at the Toledo Zoo.
Mm-hmm. So a little background on Tink that will help explain how diving with Tink is. Tink was a boat strike victim. So when the boat propeller struck him, that caused some air to get trapped inside the shell, which causes what is known as bubble butt syndrome. This makes him very floaty. And so to help level him out so he can swim a little easier and swim down a little easier, we add some lead weights to his shell. Turtles like to scratch their shells on anything and everything out in the wild. There are lots of fish that'll pick at it or rocks they can scratch on. However, Tink's absolute favorite thing to scratch on is the divers. So you're sitting there trying to scrub the window, trying to move rocks, trying to do whatever. And the entire time Tink is trying to get underneath you just so he can do a little butt wiggle and scratch his back.
Oh, he just needs a little back scratcher.
So they can feel on their shell?
Yep. They do have nerve endings. Way that I've always heard it described is very similar sensation to if you scratch the top of your fingernail.
Okay.
You can
not
feel
us sitting here and doing that right now.
So it's not quite like you're being scratched like on your hands or something, right. But you can feel that something is touching your fingernail.
I see.
Yeah, like the pressure of it.
Can I volunteer to scratch Tink's butt, please?
So we do have a couple ways that we try to allow him to scratch. I have 2 different types of scratchers that we will put in the water. However, though, because of the challenges of aquatic life and making sure that our animals aren't capable of getting too adventurous with the stuff that we put in their tanks, we can only leave them in for limited amounts of time. So one of them is this kind of swim through scratcher that I've made.
Like a car wash?
Yep,
oh,
kind of
yeah,
like a car wash.
That one.
So
yeah, the car wash.
Tink is still figuring that out. Like I said, Tink's absolute favorite scratcher is the divers, and that goes above all else. Mm-hmm. It goes above food. It goes above the other animals. It goes above pretty much everything. So we only use the scratcher while divers are in the water because the divers have to be able to take it out. Otherwise, we don't have an easy way of getting it out of the water. Mm-hmm. But then while it's in the water, Tink sees divers and says, I'm going to go for those instead.
Mm.
Okay. Did the volunteers enjoy that time with Tink, or is it cumbersome to get around Tink, or is it something that they actually really enjoy?
It depends on the diver. It depends on Tink. So usually we try to have 2 divers in the water at a time. The divers will split up who's working on like the windows and walls, who's working down on the bottom on like the rocks. Tank prefers the people that are down at the bottom. So our divers tend to swap who's doing what so that you're not being harassed the entire time.
Tank strategy.
I love that. Well, that makes me love Tank just that much more.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we were able to bring up the volunteer dive program because it seems like they do an incredible amount of work for you guys.
They do. We are very appreciative of them. And we are always looking for more divers because we always have dives going on.
Great.
Did you hear that, y'all? You can come dive at the Toledo Zoo. Check out the link in our bio. I'm gonna
We'll
plug
probably
it in.
add it in there.
Yeah, we should.
If
we
they're
should.
taking applicants.
Go ahead. I want you guys to talk about like the state of the aquarium today. What is it like working in this aquarium and what makes it like so special?
Compared to the previous facility,
Yeah.
it's a lot busier.
A lot busier. Okay.
More water volume, more fish individual numbers, bigger pumps, bigger systems. We have an ozone generator system, which we didn't have in the old building. Once you get where things are more centralized in a way, if that's an adjective to describe it, it's a lot busier.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I've been in the basement of the museum before, like behind the scenes and stuff. And oh my gosh, it's a maze. How do you guys stay organized down there? Because it's just pipes and water flowing and there's this giant salt bag. And then like it's so confusing to me, but for you guys, how do you guys stay so organized? And what else down there other than water?
What else down there? It's a basement. So whatever you're,
Spiders. I'm kidding.
I'll just give my basic tour
Yeah.
explanation here. It's a basement. So the standard homeowner's basement is going to have, that's where all the fuses are. That's where the hot water system is. That's where sump pumps are. That's where you do storage. The basement is set up like a figure 8 on a digital clock. So you have 2 long hallways, 3 short hallways, and the squares in between. That's where we have water systems, pump systems, that type of stuff. And it's just like being in if you move to a new city or you're on vacation, the first day you don't know where you're going, but then you start to get the muscle memory. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to hang a left here and not go straight.
Hang a left here.
That's what it is. And then there's only 2 stairwells. In the old building, we had 5, 6 stairwells. Now we only have 2.
Oh, wow.
So it's like just keep sticking to the outside wall and keep turning left until you find a stairwell, and then you can go up.
Whenever I'm down there with you guys, I just follow. And I know that some of you guys are very fast walkers because you know where you're going. So I'm just like hustling behind you guys.
We seriously have to keep up because I feel the same way. Like if we lose you guys, I don't know if I can find you
I'm like
again.
calling my mom. Help.
Just stick to an outside wall and you'll get back to the loading dock.
I do want to add though, the basement has a little more than just your normal home basement.
Yes, it does. It does. I hadn't gotten there yet.
We keep all of our quarantine systems. So these are smaller fish tanks that are set up for bringing in new animals, which we will always quarantine before they go out on exhibit. Make sure that we're not bringing in anything that might harm our animals that we already have, as well as they can be holding tanks. So if we're redesigning an exhibit, we need to pull animals off exhibit, or somebody's not feeling well, we can bring them down into the basement where it's a lot smaller, a lot cozier, and we're able to get more hands-on them if we need to, or they're just able to be housed in a system where they can hold out until their new exhibit is ready for them.
Interesting.
So the entire basement is lined with these tanks and all of their associated filtration.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of visitors don't quite understand sometimes is that, yeah, you've got these amazing, very straightforward exhibitory spaces that are very well mapped out for their experience. And, you know, you get to appreciate all the animals that you see on the visitor side. But in these behind the scenes areas, there's so many more animals that people don't even get to see. Or they're just like you said, being quarantined in circulation, what have you.
Yeah. I think down in the basement, we have in total like 25-ish tanks or systems. And right now, in prep for this celebration, almost every single one of them has animals in it, whether that's animals being moved to a new exhibit or new animals coming in for quarantine. We even had to set up a couple extra tanks wherever we could find space just to make sure that we had room because we've got a lot of stuff coming in.
A question that I have, you are talking about all these different tanks. There's 25 tanks in the basement. How much water is in that aquarium? Do you have the number of gallons?
Roughly, the entire aquarium is about 200,000 gallons between everything combined.
Absolutely insane. And you guys are making sure that it's flowing properly every single day, that the salinities, I don't know much about salinities, water quality, but you're making sure that that's working and that it's safe and clean for all the fish.
Yeah, what type of systems have to be in place? Like, how big of systems do we have to have in place to make sure that the water is running properly through these tanks?
We've got a couple different things going on at the same time. So overall, almost every single tank in the aquarium is monitored by a online system that tracks, depends on what tank it is, on what it exactly tracks, but it's usually going to be the flow rates, how fast the water is flowing through the pipes, as well as whether the pumps are on or things like that. So if something goes wrong and a pump is off and there's no water flow, it will actually send out an alert to our computer, our manager, and security. And then they'll be able to assess what's going on or send somebody in if it's after hours to assess it. Outside of that, though, every single morning, somebody is going to do an entire sweep of the basement. We're looking at all of the life support. We're looking at all of the tanks. If there's anything like decor is wrong, or checking the animal health, looking at, do they have any behavioral issues? Are they looking all right? Was there any leftover food from the day before? And then out on exhibit up in the lobby area, we'll have another person that goes around and does the same thing there. Wow. So we're checking water flow, making sure there's air bubbles, if there's an air supply in that tank, and things like that.
It really seems like all those systems are set up for a very fast response from you guys. It's great that you guys are able to detect all that, but is like the speedy response a very important component of it as well? Like, are there species that are very sensitive?
It depends.
Okay.
So if you have a massive pipe rupture, then yes, that invokes an immediate response.
Flood of the Toledo Zoo.
And then there's just certain things where it's almost like a medical triage situation in a way. It's like, okay, this is dripping. Okay, well, how bad is the drip? Okay, we can wait a day. We have to order a new pump. This is not critical right now. Oh, look, we just lost the entire air system. Okay, I'm just making that up. If you lose this needs to be dealt with right now. If you lose that, okay, we'll order a new one.
It's really just that you guys have those
just
systems
depends.
in place, though, for sure.
Yeah, I would say aquarium care has some extra challenges compared to general animal care, because if a light burns out over...
the elephant keepers don't have to worry that their elephants are running out of oxygen.
Yeah.
Well,
but like in the fish world, we have to worry about, like, do they have enough oxygen to be able to breathe? Because water, although it holds the oxygen, it does not easily transfer oxygen, or fish themselves create a lot of messes. Those messes can pollute the water. So if the filtration goes down and the water's not getting cleaned, then we've got other challenges. So,
oh my gosh,
I think you inferred or asked if are some things more sensitive than others.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. So octopus is super sensitive to temperature gradients. Temperature goes up a couple degrees, it's in trouble. Whereas like a round goby or the goldfish, it's like, nah.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Some systems are more vital than others.
It's important that you take care of them, but they have a larger gradient of acceptability for environmental parameters. Corals do not. Jellyfish, as a general rule, I think do not. Octopus for sure.
It seems like with your guys' field, there is so much like science and chemistry involved in making sure that those tanks and the water quality is like tip-top shape.
Correct.
What are the different factors that go into water quality that you guys are monitoring and adjusting?
Do that one? You want me to?
I can do it. In general, for fish, the biggest one is known as the nitrogen cycle. So whenever fish create any waste, whether that is urine or feces, that stuff will break down into ammonia in the tank. Ammonia is really toxic to fish, but there are bacteria that will eat that ammonia and turn it into something else. Nitrite, which is also toxic to fish. But then same thing, there's another type of bacteria that'll convert that into a much less toxic form. All three of those are things that we have to monitor, though, depending on the health of the system and how old the tank is. So an older tank has a lot of that bacteria. We don't have to worry too much about ammonia, but we do have to worry more about the later stage stuff, which is nitrates. In addition to that, you've got saltwater animals in general, which we have to worry about the general salinity of it, making sure that we are recreating saltwater as best we can. But then you can even go a step further and you have invertebrates and corals and even some animals like cuttlefish or jellyfish. They have more micronutrient challenges. So we have to make sure for like the corals that there's enough magnesium and calcium in the water.
I'm like getting anxious from hearing all this.
I failed chemistry, so this is blowing my mind.
A lot of it, our tanks are very stable. So for the more general stuff, like the nitrogen-based things, we test them once a week, once a month, depends on the tank, depends on what we're testing for. But on the other side, like the corals, our coworker Brad, he will test them weekly or daily even, depending on what he's testing for, and has a number of dosing mechanisms to be able to keep up with the various calcium, magnesium, et cetera, that the corals need.
Wow.
So you guys are really smart.
A related topic to this for viewers who may be interested in setting up fish tanks, a very personal opinion here. One of the common mistakes that leads to fish death right away is when they set up their first fish tank, they throw too many fish in right at once, and you don't have the bacteria load to eat the ammonia. And then you have the ammonia spike, which then kills the fish. So basically, we have to establish an ecosystem first, and then you can put the fish in. So when we were setting the building up 10 years ago, well, we're starting from scratch. There's no bacteria. So you can buy bacterial cultures. There's different strategies for this. You can buy bacteria cultures that are pre-existing. You can take filter floss or gravel from other established tanks that have the bacteria load on them. So you're inoculating your tank, putting the culture in there, and you have to feed it ammonia. So we had to run through every 2 days and take water samples from each tank. This is where the chemistry comes in. And then using machinery and test reagents, figure out, okay, I have this much free ammonia in the system. And then you have to feed it. So then, okay, I have this much ammonia. So I'm putting 30 grams of ammonia in whatever the gallonage was, and I test it 2 days later and it registers 0 ammonia. It's like, well, it ate it all. So now, just like if you feed your kid, just like you fed your cat, you have to feed the bacteria. So you keep dumping, this is how I see it. You keep dumping the ammonia in at measured doses until it's constantly 0, 0, 0, 0. Mm-hmm. That then justifies you can start putting fish and stuff in. So if you want to set a fish tank up for the first time at home, clean your gravel, put it in there. Don't put a bunch of fish in at once. Just put 1 or 2 small guys in just to get it going, and then you can add to it.
You heard it here first.
Oh my gosh.
My mind is blown, and it just makes me like appreciate what you guys do 10 times more. Because like I said, you're so smart, and there's, like you said, it's not just like when you did the renovation, it's like, all right, well, let's just throw our fish in here. There's so much more that goes behind it. Now for you, switching gears a little bit, you were here before the renovation.
Correct.
So you have seen the before of the aquarium and now the after. What is that? What was it like for you? Is it better? Is it, what you thinking?
It depends on the topic, actually.
Okay.
All new electrical, all new floor coating, upgraded HVAC, concrete patching. The old building needed to be renovated because there are parts of the basement that from the bottom that are being propped up. So saltwater is very corrosive to unprotected concretes. Mm-hmm. And over time, you get pitting and cracking and exposed rebar and that type of stuff. So structurally, this needs to be fixed. Mm-hmm. The change for me is the size of the system. Where the big tank is now, the 90,000 gallon South Pacific tank, that used to be public space. So that's where the giant great white shark was hanging from the ceiling with the Santa Claus hat in wintertime. That was public space. And then the tanks were around it. And now it's the engineers and the architects flip-flopped everything. So now the visitor space is the water, and where the water was is now where the visitors are walking. So that's just kind of a shock is not the right word, but every time I walk through, it's like, oh, I'm walking through my old shark tank.
My old shark. You're swimming with the fishies.
Yeah. From the research that I'd gotten on the renovation itself, it had quadrupled the amount of water in aquatic space.
I believe that sounds about right.
That's nuts.
You you grew up here in Toledo, so you saw
yes.
the aquarium, what it was like before. So as like a kid for you, what was that like walking into the aquarium and as a child and then walking into it now?
It's little old Corey.
Little old Corey.
I mean, yeah, it was just as Jeff had described it. I mean, it was much like darker tone. For me, my favorite part was always walking into the flashlight fish booth. It was like an exhibit, but it was set up like a booth where you just walk in and see them like that.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned.
You remember that, Maddie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Maddie was here as a kid too, experiencing the same stuff.
So that's an example of you set something up and then new stuff becomes available and you have to modify your pre-existing thing. Once flashlight fish became available as a exhibit species, it's like, okay, well, they're deeper water. You can't just have the standard lobby. So how do I take this pre-existing tank window setup? Well, we can just make a shed around it in the front, and you get some plywood, you get your construction people, and you make a thing with a drape, and then the little kids have fun running in and out of the drape and pulling on it and going, Mommy, look at the fish.
Hi, that was me.
That was Corey.
We just always thought someone was going to come out and get us because it was so dark in there.
It was very spooky.
Maddie was scared.
Anxious child.
I also have seen photos of like the walk-through rainforest compartment area. What was that for? I heard there was a trout run.
So the building was built in 36 and 37. That's my memory of what the WPA plaque is on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The original construction was a Japanese pagoda area, and the stream was a koi pond setup.
Oh, fun.
They decided to take the columns that were in the room, and you get your exhibits companies to come in, and you throw a bunch of dirt in there, and poof, you have a tropical rainforest.
Poof.
So it had the sloth in there, so that was mammals. You had iguanas in there, so that was reptiles. You had the fish from us, birds, and then you had the walkway through.
Yeah.
So you had to go through the rainforest and you had to find everybody. It's like, where's the sloth at? Well, he's way up in the weeds.
Hey, where he was last night.
You had to count iguanas.
Oh, goodness.
gosh.
And then we came, I think there was 3 at the time. I think I was actually doing rounds at that time. I'm like, hey, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. wait. 1, 2, 3. Oh, look, there's an extra iguana. So someone had snuck in an iguana that they didn't want anymore.
A pet?
Yeah.
Oh my
Are you
gosh.
serious?
He was not there yesterday.
This is my remembrance of this. So yes.
Oh my gosh.
People.
Wow. Don't be giving people
Yeah.
ideas.
Do not dump your goldfish in
No.
our tank, please.
No, but
Please.
that's how goldfish get into Lake Erie. That's how Florida's ecosystems have been radically changed. People got pets. They didn't want them anymore. Hey, the zoo will take care of it. I'll just smuggle it in under my coat and dump it in the rainforest.
When it comes to that tank and what we talk about in the aquarium is that goldfish is an invasive species in many areas.
Correct.
And that just creates so many problems because it disrupts the entire ecosystems of those wild bodies of water, correct?
Correct.
Now, what I've learned from you guys so far is that like things change over time within the aquarium and within your position and your jobs. Now, I know with like mammals and like other departments, zookeeping has changed a lot based on the animal's needs. How has like being an aquarist changed over the years? Are there like things that you learn over time of like, okay, maybe this fish isn't thriving in this tank and we need to, add something or decrease something?
I would say there's a big variety of it. Kind of depends on what topic you want to specify in here. So in some ways, locally speaking, like with ourselves, it is a little bit of learning that, oh, hey, I changed this decor and now this animal is a lot more active and out and about or hiding a lot more, and figuring out what their either individual personalities are like or what these animals' specific needs are that we may not have known before. There's a lot of constant technology change in the aquarium world. Like it's just completely different today with what you're monitoring, how you're doing it, what you're using to do it with. Another way is in our understanding of the animals. So there's been a much greater understanding of the intelligence of fish and how you can train them, how much enrichment they need. Like you might work with a penguin to walk into a travel crate so you can move them to the vets or move them around wherever they may need. We could take a net and just scoop an animal and move it to wherever we need to go. But that entire time you're running as fast as you can, as carefully as you can, so you don't take too long while the animal's out of the water. But today's age, you could do a lot more training with them, and you can work on getting them to move into a stretcher or some sort of container that carry water with it. So at no point do you take the animal out of their environment to be able to move them from one area to another.
That's fascinating.
And a lot of that's just come up in the past 20, 30 years in this field.
Yeah.
The biggest technology change, in my opinion, is lighting. When I started out, your options were incandescent and fluorescent and like maybe metal halides. Nowadays, the LED technology has completely revolutionized, again, my opinion, only my words, the exhibit aspect of stuff. The LEDs are more energy efficient. You get better control over your color spectrum. Corals used to be super, super hard. And nowadays it's like, corals.
Corals.
It's easier now. The average home aquarist can get into that field and do it successfully. Whereas, again, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it was higher end stuff.
When you started talking about advanced lighting, for me, I just thought you were talking about like the appearance of it.
No.
But I didn't even think about like the wavelengths and how.
It depends on the animal. So corals, that's how you're feeding. The corals, his sea anemones, they have the photosynthetic symbiotic relationships. You need certain wavelengths of light. Back then, 20 years ago, you had these two options. Nowadays, it's like, oh, look at all this stuff we can have. Go to your local Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever box store you want to go to and just go through the lighting section.
I love the lighting section.
Right? Right?
It's so entertaining.
Right? Oh, I could use that one for this, and I can use this one for this. And just there's so many options that are available that are now, 10 years ago, LEDs were expensive, and now, like everything else, they drop in price.
You also get programmable lights where we can get a lot more into the actual natural environment of the animals, because beforehand it was
on,
you have
off.
a metal halide. Yeah, it's on or it's off, and that's it. But nowadays with these LEDs, we can fully recreate the cycle of the sun with sunrises, sunsets. Some animals, that's actually important in their reproduction cycle. So if we're trying to get seahorses, for example, to give birth, they oftentimes will give birth just during those twilight hours. So turning our lights to be able to have those cycles will help increase the frequency with which we'll have babies.
I'm not the coral person, so I'm getting most of this right. There are multiple coral species. They all release at once, and they time it based on the full moon of whatever time of year it is.
That's so cool.
So you can use artificial lighting and computer programs, and you can simulate the light level that full moons would give off over time. And then you can artificially induce your corals to spawn and that type of stuff.
Technology.
Technology is beautiful.
Taking photos and videos, I walk in there, I'm like, oh yeah, they're upgrading the lighting. It just looks so good, which is a component of it, but I wasn't even thinking about just how the actual animals, including coral, react to that positively.
Or like you got to turn down the lights so the seahorses can give birth. Like, excuse me? Like, what? Turn down the light. She needs some privacy.
That's a survival strategy.
Oh.
So he's more of a stingray person than I am. We can tell when they're pregnant. And then the vets come over and they do the ultrasound. Oh, she's got babies. Then you pull her off display. She's not going to have them during the day. You always come in the morning, and then that's when you have them. So a lot of I'm an early bird. I get up on I'm like 5:30, 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's just the way my brain is. But there's nature shows super early.
Right.
And on NBC or whatever it was, they were doing a thing on some kind of shrimp. And they were showing it molting. It was all artificial in a tank and all that kind of stuff. And they commented on they do this at night. Why? Because the predators can't see you.
So it's like, listen, hear me out here. It's like in Finding Nemo, when she has all her babies in that little anemone, and then the barracuda comes and kills all her babies.
Where are you going with this?
I'm asking, like, when she killed all the babies in the anemone, was that because they were in the light? Is there any science to that?
There's just survival strategies.
Survival strategies.
So she's seen that movie once.
Well, only one time.
I saw it for professional reasons. Why are clownfish hanging out in the sea anemones? That's his tank. It's for protection. So there's just certain survival things you do. You give birth at night. Mm-hmm. You molt under rocks. that type of stuff.
Do fish learn from their parents?
Generally, no.
Good question.
Fish in general lay eggs, and a lot of, especially marine fish, it is just lay the eggs out in the water and the eggs will go wherever they're going to go.
And leave?
You'll never see them again.
Gotcha.
Some fish do lay their eggs on specific things and will actually guard the eggs, but they don't particularly care for their young after they've been born. There are some fish species that are schooling and more communal that will hang out around their young, but not particularly care for the young. They just stay in their community, but they're not really teaching each other.
Okay. So Finding Nemo is inaccurate.
Yes.
Oh no.
Now, some aquatic animals like social stingrays, cow-nose rays, for example, they stay in schools, although they may not be teaching their young in the sense of this is how you do this intentionally. They are observing each other. So if you have baby cow-nose under human care, a frequent thing to do is to keep it with an older one, because when they're first born, they don't know how to do anything in the world. They don't know how to find food, or especially under human care, they don't know how to eat frozen food. So if we keep it with a older one that does know how to eat that stuff, it's going down and trying to eat, and the other one will see that and see, yep, that's food, and usually speed up the process of getting onto the frozen food.
I'm just loving this conversation right now.
I had to ask that question about Finding Nemo.
I guess that brings me to my next point, is that overall, what value do you think aquariums bring to communities and visitors who visit them?
The globe is, what's the statistic? 75% water. And if you don't have exposure to what's out there, then there's no psychological impulse for people to protect what they don't know is there. But if people don't know what's out there, then you don't know that you need to do things to protect that stuff for future generations. The average person is not going to go out and see a whale shark or go see an octopus or see stingrays. So like the octopus, we provide octopus tours. So if you go on our website, education, blah, blah, blah.
We'll link it.
We'll link it. We started asking people where they were from. And in my head, being biased, like all these people are in, Rossford or they're Bowling Green or whatever. It's like, oh no, we drove straight in from New York. I'm like, you just drove 12 hours from New York? Yeah. For what? For this? Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
And then there was another older mom, middle-aged daughter. All the mom said was like, we're getting on an airplane. This is my understanding of the story. And the mom didn't tell the daughter where they were going. Just, we're getting on an airplane. We're going somewhere for a weekend and we're going to have fun. And it wasn't until they got on the airplane that the mom told them that we're going to Toledo and we're going to touch an octopus.
That's
and
so
that was their trip.
Yeah.
And then they spent the weekend. I think some of these people are coming in from out of state. They're hitting the mud hens. They're going to the art museum. They're hitting our local economy. So again, what value does our building have? Well, we're part of the zoo. We're a major tourist attraction for the whole Northwest Ohio. So it all bleeds over into other areas.
For me, it's the fact that we offer a zoo experience, an aquarium experience, a museum experience, all within just one admission ticket. And then the fact that we do things beyond that.
Yeah, definitely go sign up for these behind the scenes tours, because going back there is it's a whole nother world.
Like what you said, Jeff, it's just making sure that people are aware that these animals exist, and seeing them in person gets that better understanding of an appreciation for what they bring to this world. And that ultimately, like, I know there's a lot of messaging in the building, and a lot of messaging that we have is all about sustainability, all about conservation awareness, and things that we can be doing today to be protecting what's left out there in our bodies of water and actually restoring it too, right? Like, what factors today are the biggest influences in the health of our aquatic systems within the world?
There are a couple, and it depends a little bit on the type of body of water. So, for example, here in the Great Lakes, one of the biggest challenges, or two of the biggest challenges we have, are invasive species and phosphorus. So, invasive species are a huge problem in the Great Lakes. Great Lakes have very little natural ecosystems left in them, to put it bluntly. Most of the animals that you encounter in the Great Lakes these days are likely to be invasive, whether that is the zebra mussels and the round gobies, or that is the salmon.
There's salmon
these
in the Great
days,
Lakes?
there's not much salmon left, but I want to say it was the early 1900s is when we really started to damage the ecosystems of the Great Lakes as the canals were built and as global shipping increased. And we lost a lot of the local species in the Great Lakes and replaced them with new stuff. And back in the 60s through 80s, I believe it was, a new idea came up, which was to reintroduce fishing into the Great Lakes. A lot of the sport fish were gone. So they brought in salmon. And you used to be able to catch salmon through all the Great Lakes all the time. And then all of a sudden there was another big ecosystem collapse as the food that the prey that the salmon would eat died out as well because there was too many salmon and too many other predatory fish eating them. So the salmon population collapsed, but there are still salmon in the Great Lakes.
I never knew this.
So there's a lot of invasive problems here in the Great Lakes. Another one, for example, is the that we're trying to keep out are the Asian carp in the Mississippi River system. And Chicago is the only point protecting the Great Lakes from them. And if they get in, they will be in all of the Great Lakes very rapidly. On the other hand, phosphorus is a bigger issue for like Lake Erie. Some people may remember back in, 2014 that Toledo had some water issues.
2015, maybe.
That was because of a algae bloom that occurred in Lake Erie. That algae is fed by the phosphorus that's in the water. Phosphorus is getting in the water from fertilizers, particularly from our farms, and polluting the ecosystem, which is then creating a lot of this. It's actually a cyanobacteria. Down in Florida, they have a saltwater version called red tide, which causes problems every single year on the Tampa coastline. It's toxic to fish. It's toxic to animals near the water because it can get aerosolized and you can breathe it in. For people, we tend to have some light respiratory issues, but it's very problematic to our ecosystems. One other thing out globally, though, is in the oceans are sharks. I'm not joking. Millions and millions of sharks are killed every single year. And people are doing it for sports. People are doing it for food. These animals are just tossed back out into the wild without their fins.
Oh my gosh.
And sharks, although they may seem scary, are a very, very critical part of our ecosystem. People think of them as just man-eaters. They really aren't. One, we don't taste good to them. It's a lot due to the iron in our blood. It's very bad for them.
Oh.
They do not like us. We are not in their diet. We are not part of their food chain at all.
Good to know.
But because of the amount of sharks that are being killed off, that is causing a lot of ecosystem distress around the world. You should be able to swim on a coral reef or around an island or something and see sharks. And when you don't see sharks, it's extremely concerning because they are one of the biggest indicators of the health of an ecosystem. So if there's no sharks there, that area is not doing too well. Fortunately, around the world, there's a lot of things going on to reduce the phosphorus going into our waters, whether that is monitoring how pollution's occurring and who's dumping in the water, or making sure that farm runoff water isn't going out to the rivers, which will lead to the lakes and cause our problems.
My next question was, what's at stake? But it seems like there is just so much at stake. Everything is at stake when it comes to our bodies of water and the ecosystems that live.
Well, we couldn't drink water in Toledo for 3 days.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
You were not here. We're not here for this.
No, I'm not from here. I'm not from
So
here.
I got up in the morning and I went to my local gas station to get whatever my soft drink option for the day was. And there was a couple and their kid, and they were grabbing all the things of bottled water out of the cooler. And I'm like, that's odd. There's a much cheaper alternative up the street at the Kroger. And then they turned around like, didn't you hear you can't drink the water? I'm like, what do you mean you can't drink the water? So I drive by Kroger, and there's just a massive line of people trying to get into the Kroger to get all the bottled water. So it's one of those, you take things for granted, and next thing you know, you can't drink. Wait, it's the year 2000 something, and I'm in Toledo and I'm not allowed to drink the tap water. There's selfish reasons to protect stuff. Where do you think your food is coming from? Where do you think your water is coming from?
And like you said, species are indicators of the health of our bodies of water. And if our, world species can't be living in them anymore because of how unhealthy it is, it affects us too.
So in my time frame of life, it's okay, coming of age, early, 70s, whatever. It's like, that's why they made the EPA. The Cuyahoga River in Cleveland or whatever caught fire. It's like, what do you mean your river caught fire?
River caught on fire?
River caught on fire.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
I'm so out of the loop.
There were so many.
I'm not from the Northwest or the North.
Your technology, your plastics, our modern society relies on these things, but there's byproducts of them that are detrimental. Back in the day, there's no way you could overpollute
No.
the Lake Erie. It's just not possible.
Right.
So there's unregulated dumping of petrochemicals or whatever, and enough built up. Oh, look, the river's on.
The river is on fire.
This is why we have an EPA today,
Mm-hmm.
Environmental Protection Agency. It's because back in the 70s, rivers are catching on fire. Species, I remember Lake Erie being a green sludge mess.
Mm-hmm.
A large source of phosphorus at the time was laundry detergent. So I bet if you go look at your laundry detergent labels right now, it's going to say no phosphorus on it. Why is algae blooming? Well, because there's phosphorus in there. So again, going back to the chemistry topic, now you have too much algae. The algae sinks to the bottom, dies, rips all the oxygen out of the water. Well, fish need oxygen. Fish die. There's dead fish floating up on all your beaches, which is disgusting for all your tourism people.
Mm-hmm.
Where's all the phosphorus coming from? Fertilizer, laundry detergents. You need to have fertilizer for farms. You cannot have it and expect people to have enough food to eat. So it's always about finding a balance.
Yeah, because there's a lot of doom and gloom that we're talking about here, but not all hope is lost.
No, in my time frame, the ozone holes repaired itself because we got rid of putting CFCs into the atmosphere. The Lake Erie, yes, we have introduced species and we still have a phosphorus problem, but compared to what it was in the 70s, it's not like that. Mm-hmm. So nature is extraordinarily resilient. If you do things to help it, it will mend itself. You just have to work together.
Yeah. One other positive note I could say is in sea turtle conservation. So sea turtles reproduce really slowly. They have a lot of eggs at once, but the eggs do not survive to adulthood to be able to reproduce again. About one in numbers vary. It's between about 1 in 1,000 and 1 in 10,000 will actually make it to adulthood.
Oh my gosh.
And this has led to, of the 7 species, pretty much all of them being threatened or endangered. Today, though, every year there's a lot of nesting observations that go on to protect the nests, a lot of rescues that go on to help heal up any injured turtles that are found. Like Tink. However, Tink was non-releasable, so Tink could not go back out into the ocean. But for those that are able to go back out into the wild, and every year there are big positive growth in the number of nestings that are occurring, which means there's more females getting to adulthood and reproducing. So we are seeing positive growth in our sea turtles.
You have collaboration between tourism industries, conservation groups, homeowner associations. So the sea turtle baby comes up. Well, which way does it go? Mm-hmm. They orientate to the moonlight coming off the water. Well, you have all the homes on the beach and they have all their porch lights. So the baby turtles were going the other way.
Oh, no.
Conservation groups go to the homeowner associations. It's like, hey, it's sea turtle hatching time. Can you guys just turn your lights off?
Lights off, yeah.
So just little things. People don't think they can have impacts, and you can. You just don't always know it, but if you're doing something positive, then there's going to be a positive outcome. And if 100 people are doing it, then it just magnifies on itself.
I've learned so much.
I've really learned
more
a
than
lot
I have
here too.
in my 4 years of college. I'm kidding. I did not study marine biology. But no, I appreciate everything that you guys have touched on and like enlightened for not only us, but for our listeners. So we're going to get into our Zoomies segment. I don't know if you guys have seen our Zoomies segment. Basically, we've just noticed that a lot of podcasts have just like a fun little segment where they just rattle off some silly questions. And so we're a zoo. So we're going to have some Zoomies. And then
got it. Now I get
animals get Zoomies. Do fish get Zoomies? That's my first question.
Hard to tell if it's quite the same as you might think of with your dog.
Right.
I would certainly say every now and then Tink appears to, but that may also just be temper tantrums, but that is absolutely humanizing them. So Tink eats out of a basket so that we can separate Tink from all the normal fish food. It is not healthy for him to eat that. He eats lettuce instead. And there are occasional days where I'll put the basket in the water and he just starts swimming. He is trugging along. He does not care what's in his way. He is zooming. And refuses to come over to the basket for 6-7 laps until finally he's like, all right, I'll come over.
I would classify that as a zoomie.
Yeah, it might be a temper tantrum induced zoomie. He's like, no, I don't want to come over yet. But yeah, the more you know.
Yes.
My first zoomie question is, what is the most challenging species to care for in the aquarium?
Corals.
Certain
environmental parameters just go out of whack. The algae bales. Dead.
Dang.
Wow.
I would say back and forth between corals and jellyfish. Jellyfish, the big challenge with them is both sensitivity as well as just how clean the water is. But in addition to that, jellies do not particularly live very long. So we have to keep a constant culture going on. So we're constantly trying to get more of them through our polyps, which is the early life stage version of a jelly, and keeping up on that. But if you slack on that and you're too late, you now might have a population gap. And now you're going to have to be worried about, can you fill that gap, or are we going to fall behind and our population will shrink or things like that. So
I've seen your guys' jellyfish farm behind the scenes. It's like
The jellyfish
farm. You got the little ones and get a little bigger. And yeah, it's very interesting.
And you have to take in consideration the actual tank physical setup a little bit more than the other things.
Yeah, jellyfish don't exactly swim.
They just kind of blow.
They have a very
Just
simple nervous system. They don't think, at least not as we understand animals think. So they don't have motor control on where they go. They go where the water takes them.
Well,
Jellyfish are one of the oldest forms of life on the planet.
Correct.
Compared to
sponges are below them.
Sponges.
I taught zoology for 5 years or 4 years.
Oh my God.
Sponges, then jellyfish.
Okay.
Sponges, jellyfish, then me.
Then us somehow.
Okay, next question. Jeff, this one is for you. Archerfish can shoot jets of water up to 6 feet away with precision. How? You take care of our archerfish at the zoo, and we've done a few videos with you.
Correct.
Can you explain to us, how is a fish spitting water, hitting a fly, and getting it to eat?
To me, it's their precision. I can't believe how accurate they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's genetic. Certain behaviors are biologically innate based on genetic programming. So no one teaches a spider how to make that web. No one teaches the bumblebee how to make the perfect hexes for the whatever. So it's pre-positioned biological programming. The bones on the roof of the mouth are curved. So for all the young kids who made the tube with the spit wads in it, it's basically something like that. The main thing is not so much the physics of how you're making the droplets, but going back to your accuracy, the thing we pointed out in the video is if you're going from air to water or water to air, because you have the density differences, the light bends. Yeah. So if you're looking down in my koi pond, physically in space, that's not where the koi is because the light has bent. So they're looking up, they are seeing an object in space, what's not where it is. And then they have to compensate by going a couple inches down or a couple inches over.
It's so cool to see them do that. Next time you guys are at the aquarium, definitely go check out the archerfish and see.
Or the YouTube video that we made.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We made a whole video on it.
We made a whole video, but if you want to see it in person, come out to the aquarium and see them spit.
You do demos with them often, right?
Not as often as I'm supposed to be because we have so many other things. Hopefully, this is one of my projects for the year is once things hopefully die down a little bit, I can start doing that stuff more. I have a floating mat, which I want to improve on, and you pour the crickets or whatever the insect is on there, start spinning water at it. Bing, 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 bing.
I have one suggestion for that. I saw, I don't even know how long ago, there's a video where people actually put plates or something on their head as targets for archerfish. And the archerfish, I don't know how they got them to do it, but they will literally spit at those targets. Just
the target? There was nothing on the target?
There's got to be something on those targets.
When I first started here, there was a high schooler and she was doing a senior project and she just saw video cameras, the old school VHS thing in the lobby. And she was just taping the crickets to the leaves on whatever that exhibit was at the time. Yeah. And it's just again, there's just certain innate things. It's, you don't need to train it. It just does it.
I think you should volunteer to be the first.
I will happily volunteer.
Again, check the video.
Check the video.
check the video out.
All right. Next question. I heard that fish can talk to each other, like fish chatter. Is this true? Fish can speak.
Fish do make noise.
Okay.
A lot more fish than you might think. So most fish produce noise outside of our hearing range.
Mhm.
So we are not fully able to hear it.
I'm starting to think that humans are the dumb ones.
I think that
Elephants
is
can
correct.
make sounds that
No,
we
we're
can't
just
hear.
unaware of what goes on.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Just built different, I
Oh.
guess.
Some fish do produce noise in our hearing range. There's a type of saltwater fish called a grunt, and they get that name because they grunt in the water. And you can hear it pretty easily, but a lot of fish, we don't fully know what noises they make because it's outside our hearing ranges, or there's just a lot of other noises in the water. So there's some research projects going on right now to try to both record all the noise in the water and figure out what is making what noise in there. And they've actually found a lot more species than we thought made noise are actually making noise. Whether they are talking is a whole other thing.
But noises in the first
but
place.
they are making noises.
There was a news story not too long ago, maybe last year, where down in Florida, the coastal community was just hearing a weird rumbling noise, and they were like calling 911 or just what's going on, UFOs, whatever. And then, oh, look, it's spawning season for I believe it was the grunts or something. So such low frequency. There were so many of the fish out in the water doing all this low frequency noise that is reverbing up onto the beaches. And people were like, what is that?
Dang.
Fish talk.
Fish talk.
Fish talk. Leave them alone. Mind your business. I love that. The last Zoomie question, I think we've already answered. We said jellyfish are nearly immortal, but you proved that is incorrect.
So there is one species that is known as the immortal jellyfish.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Jellyfish as a whole are not immortal.
Right.
This one species is known as the immortal jellyfish. We don't truly know if it is immortal or not, but when it sustains light stress or damage, it is able to actually revert into its polyp stage.
Oh.
That specific jellyfish will settle back down to the bottom and become a new polyp. So rather than spawning and creating baby polyps, it's becoming the polyp itself and will restart its life, create new ephyra, which are exact clones of that original jellyfish, and then go back into the jellyfish stage.
It's the real life reset button.
Yeah,
Real life.
exactly. Now, theoretically, under ideal conditions, it might be able to do this indefinitely, which is where the immortal comes from. However, the ocean is not ideal conditions. So the reality of it happening, probably pretty low.
It is
That's
very
still
cool,
very
though.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are studies going on, though, because part of why we age, and pretty much all life ages, is over time our DNA deteriorates. Whether that is from external conditions like UV light from the sun, or even just as our cells reproduce, our DNA shortens every single time it reproduces. This jellyfish is somehow able to avoid doing that. There's a lot of studies going on into that, how it does that, how that might be able to pertain to medicine in the future. But
How do you stop cancer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you stop aging?
So the key to immortality is jellyfish.
Possibly.
Could be.
Jellyfish.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm. We are ready for our questions from the audience. Maddie, you want to take it away?
Let's do it.
What are the sharks' names, if they have names?
So our sharks do not have names. Most of the animals in the aquarium we have not named. Only the sea turtle, tink, and unofficially our octopus, which I believe this one is Otto. They are the only two that have names.
Okay, speaking of the octopus, Jem is asking if the octopus gets enrichment, and if so, what is his favorite?
It does get enrichment. I can't quantify what its favorite would be. It gets Legos with food in it. So the keeper, Lori, who is the octopus keeper, she's really good at giving it enrichment. Food goes into constructed Lego shapes, so it has to pull the Legos apart. Food goes into the plastic Easter eggs. She got a giant gerbil ball that was like at least a foot across, and she got to put food in that for the octopus. So it gets a physical stimulus of simulating the hunting experience. And then also the keeper tours, that's enrichment for as well, because it gets to interact that way.
Next one, if you could swap places with one species in the aquarium for a day, what species would you pick?
Like they become the fish?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a good question.
Shark.
Shark.
I would probably also go maybe one of the black tips.
Black tips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Just the maneuverability, speed. They put a video camera on the top of a shark. They caught it, strapped it to its head, let it go. What is this shark's point of view of life is? And it went down into areas that they didn't know these sharks went down into. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool. The first person visual of what that animal would be like would be cool.
Mine's because black tip reef sharks are my favorite animal.
Might be
Did
biased.
not know that.
Mm-hmm.
What's a moment working with the animals that truly moved you or has stuck with you?
I had a little kid look up at me and tell me I had the coolest job in the world.
Aw.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And then I have adults look at me and go, you have the coolest job in the world.
Doesn't have the same effect.
And you really do.
It did? Yeah.
No, it doesn't, but it does.
Yeah.
It's it's 99% of people don't like their jobs. And I get up in the morning and I don't feel that way. My mom hated her job. And I could see what the negative impacts of that is. So to have a little kid or an adult look at you and go, that's cool.
I would say
That's
for
so
me, when I was in Florida, we had a manatee rehab program there. For us aquarists, that was always extra time because they weren't our direct responsibility, but manatees are very, very, very big. So when you need to move them around on land, which they are not land animals, you need a lot of hands. So we got involved in that a lot, and just getting to go on a couple releases and taking this animal that we would spend literal nights with in the water, helping maintain its buoyancy because it had been struck by a boat or was sick, and watching it swim off on its own power back out into the wild by itself without us was something that's always going to stick with me.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
We kind of already covered every other question that's on there. So
Cool.
Great.
I think we're good. Very
Okay.
nice. Well, thank you guys so much for giving me a lesson in chemistry, a lesson in fish, a lesson in water. I have learned so much.
I was not expecting to learn as much as I had learned today. And
Yeah.
wow, I hope that along with me, our audiences just have such a bigger appreciation for everything that goes on in your guys' world and the aquatic life around the globe.
Yeah. Yeah. And to show our appreciation, we have made some posters for you guys. I don't know if you can tell, but we have our past victims or guests.
That better not be a picture of me.
Oh, it sure is. So I'll give you Jeff's and
It
this
might
is mine.
be.
We make episode posters for you guys. So for Drake,
Lord of the Fins.
Lord of the Fins, and he's got some little seahorses and a little baby. And there's Tink. Tink's looking great.
Jeff is our cichlid chief.
Cichlid chief.
There's a lot of there's a lot of talk
I've heard
about.
you say so many times, you're like, I hate cichlids.
That's the comment I'm not coming out of my mouth with right now.
But you take care of so many of them, including, some really fun ones. So
Yeah. So we
These are-
definitely want to get your guys'
yes, signatures.
on
All right.
these.
We'll give them to you there. There's a marker in front. But yeah, again, thank you so much for everything that you guys do here at the zoo and for being willing to come on this episode. We're very, very grateful.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for having us.
Of course. Now, for anybody who's watching, listening at home, I want to go over a few of our events coming up. We have, like we said, the Aquarium 10-year anniversary. That is happening on Saturday, March 29th. Come on out. It's going to be great. There's going to be some new species in the aquarium to take a look at, and you can look at all of the incredible species that we talked about in this episode, including Tink the sea turtle and our archer fish. We also have Zen at the Zoo, March 30th in the aquarium. I think that's a Pure Bar Zen at the Zoo
Yeah,
experience.
that's something new that they're bringing to the table.
Definitely something new. And there's also more Zen experiences throughout the spring. We have our spring animal demos starting March 24th into April 20th. And then we have a aquarium photo tour on April 5th with yours truly.
What?
What? What did we sign ourselves up for?
Well, actually, this one should be really exciting, especially after recording this. This will be great.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. And if you guys want to check out any of our other events, go to toledozoo.org for all of our info.
And again, thank you all so much for tuning into Our Herd, the official Toledo Zoo podcast. Make sure that you follow us online on all of our different platforms. So this podcast is on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube if you want to watch. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and we've got all kinds of great content that we're pushing out every single day, coming from the zoo, behind the scenes, special events, you have it. Just make sure that you're following us to stay caught up on everything that's happening here at the Toledo Zoo. Please be sure to also leave a comment leave reviews. We want your guys' feedback, and we want to know how we can do a better job here on the podcast and what you guys are interested in hearing from us. So again, thank you all so much. We hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.